Namaskar. Welcome to this edition of the India Foundation podcast. In this edition of the India Foundation podcast, we have with us the Raju family of Hyderabad, which descends from long lines of Ayurvedic Vaidyas on both father's and mother's side. The current head, Dr J R Raju, worked closely with the late Maharshi, Mahesh Yogi ji, to teach and disseminate the Ayurvedic science of health and well-being throughout the world. In this podcast, he speaks to Mr. Com Carpenter, consultant at the India Foundation, along with his doctor Dr. Pavani Raju and his two sons Dr. H.V. Raju and Dr. Aditya Raju. Together, they run two clinics of Raju Ayurveda. They have produced many traditional medicines and they teach and train practitioners in several countries in the science of self-pulse diagnosis and therapies of Panchakarma and Sukhakarma. Let's begin.
Namaskar. It is my pleasure to welcome the Raju family, which has just been introduced and which is quite eminent and distinguished in the field of Ayurveda, known worldwide, and with a very large and distinguished array of patients and disciples all over the world. It would be now my first question would be to ask you. To tell us more about your international experience and the results you have achieved making essentially Ayurveda known and available in many countries, and in particular the self-pulse taking diagnosis.
So, it is very interesting. Maharshi wanted me to think of create the disease-free society. Maharshi was saying that this is the main aim for us to create the disease-free society. So then I thought what way we can do, because just how much we can treat, even if I train so many also, but still we cannot reach to each and every individual. We cannot give all that knowledge to everybody, and how many doctors can be trained. So then only when I mentioned to Maharshi that giving the knowledge of the health, not the sickness, because the sicknesses are growing and growing and growing, never ending. In Ayurveda also it is mentioned by the Kali Yuga, which we are living now, the Kali Yuga, the diseases, they are growing so much that even it will be very difficult to find the name for the future coming diseases. So, and the memory will be ending up only remembering the disease, where you can remember the treatments, the cure or the treatment. So then I said, only by giving the knowledge of the health to every individual, then we can achieve. And how we can do? The knowledge of the individual quickly giving is only through the pulse reading. And that is through the self-pulse reading. So I said that this way we can create. And then Maharshi said that is wonderful. So I said that mother at home makes everything perfect. So even if mother knows, can take care of the pulse and seeing the children pulse, and then can make the correction. And immediately I started, and then of course later the Vaidyas also they joined, and my children particularly, and Dr. Harsha and Dr. Pavani, Dr. Aditya, all they joined, and they also started to teach. Maharshi wanted them also to teach to the children in the schools. And that became very successful, which I created that 8 hours courses, 16 hours courses, 32 hours course on the self-pulse reading and the pulse reading for the doctors. So that became very successful because it is very simple. Knowing the health, it is much easier. So then when they learn, when they understand the health, it becomes much easier. They need not know, they need not bother about anything.
And also in our father's travel, especially father traveling, like, Charaka is known in Ayurveda to travel the world, and that's how he written. So when he traveled to Russia, where the abundance of vegetables, everything was less, one of the biggest thing, what he offered when 10,000 course participants or consultations were being held, hot water. And that itself, around the world, the way when my father used to ask for hot water, he wouldn't get even in restaurants. But if he would ask tea without tea, then they would understand, but not just by saying hot water. But now we all know how widespread hot water has become. So definitely in that traveling, he has introduced mini panchakarma, hot water, like mini panchakarma meaning there is a special oil for the nose where you do it regularly, and self abhyanga. So he has definitely introduced these things where we also got to widely experience, where he has already told, and they would share their experiences whenever we travel. Like recently we traveled to South Africa, and they used to tell, oh yes, 20 years back your father said, and I'm still practicing. My thermos is very important for me. So several, it's very fascinating to see how it evolves when something is started. And
And also, like 35 years ago, it was very difficult for my father when he was traveling to explain or to give that awareness of Ayurveda or health, and people wouldn't understand it properly. So later on, by his teachings and all this, the awareness has become more, people would understand easily. And later on, when we joined, for us to teach them, it was like very simple and
the
easy.
foundation has been laid.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I remember as a child when Maharishi came to the West, he literally, for the first time, took over a great part of the European and American scene with the entire array of Indian uh, philosophical, medical, and spiritual recipes. It wasn't just a philosophical teaching, it embraced all aspects of daily life. So it was quite a revolution in the best sense of the word. However, coming to the stage where we are now with the COVID epidemic, which has, of course, totally disrupted the normal course of things, how are you able to communicate with your patients, given that you cannot practice, you cannot offer the therapies that your clinic is famous for, such as Panchakarma or Sukhamarma? So how do you found the balance? How are you able to help your patients so that they are able to take care of themselves, as it were, on their own?
It's very simple because already we gave the knowledge to everybody with the self pulse reading and with the knowledge and the doctors, those who are trained in the pulse reading, those who are doing, for example, in Italy, there are so many, and actually they are so much advanced, more than in any other country. And so that knowledge, and those who are the doctors, they are with their complicated cases, then they ask me and then I give the suggestions and then they are becoming better. So in the same way, those who are trained in the self pulse reading, so I ask what do you find in your pulse? If anybody doesn't know self pulse reading, just immediately in 2 minutes I ask them to feel the pulse. What are you feeling in your 3 fingers? It is that much simple. And with that one, we are able to help so many people even during the COVID also, and through the kitchen, because kitchen is main pharmacy now. And the food, it is the main treatment now. What we eat, so we become. That whether if you are eating the right food, then you are promoting the health. If you are eating the wrong food, then you are promoting the diseases. So then you don't make the mistake. And already, because I already introduced the hot water, so the hot water became the great therapy. And even now in the COVID also, the best therapy is the hot water, either steaming or sipping hot water. So like that, the hot water, it is since that 30, 40 years until today and even for the future, that will help in treating the sicknesses. It doesn't make much difference for us with the COVID, and people, they are more, we are able to help even more than before, because before they had to travel, and now even without traveling, they are saving their time and money and every aspect, and they are satisfied and they are able to treat themselves. So with this little knowledge.
But the added element is before one member or few members of a family would come. Now the entire family is listening. The entire family is working together to fight and very alert for immunity. Not falling sick means that is out of the question. Like they don't want to even fall sick for anything. So it has really become a blessing in that regard.
Also, one of the main things when it comes to treatment, healing, it changes from region to region, culture to culture, and family to family. So one of the big advantages that we have is we have been traveling and working with in an international community in a global sense since we were children, because we were all traveling with Maharishi and getting our teaching under his guidance. So we have really adapted our knowledge with Ayurveda to the diversity that exists globally, not just nationally, but globally. And that really helps us to give the right counseling, the right guidance with whatever is available to each cultural inheritance in that country and that region. We are very easily for us, it is possible to understand the person we are talking to.
Yes, and of course we all know, we know that you have all been brought up into the Ayurvedic discipline and science since you were 5 years old. So there is that immersion which practitioners of Western medicine never have, really, because they only start at university to study medicine, and there is a whole different approach to it. But let me, of course, remind our viewers that medicine all over the world started from premises or basis rather similar to Ayurveda, because it was always about healing with the power of nature, as your own logo reads, your own philosophy reads. Yet, as we all know, and we can see it even more today in this time of health crisis worldwide, that more and more everything seems to be predicated on the use of chemical medicines made in giant labs. And after trying many different medicines, drugs to cure or treat COVID-19 with sometimes very unsatisfactory results, we see that the only hope left now is with vaccines. And yet, those vaccines are arousing a great deal of mistrust because of the experimental technology on which they are based, which is insufficiently tested, and therefore leaves us quite uncertain about the side effects, the long-term side effects. What is the view? I would say, what is the view of Ayurveda? What is your view of the role of vaccines, and how does Ayurveda relate to vaccination, particularly vaccination which is modifying the immune system? Do you see that as something that, sorry, go ahead.
This is a very good question, a very important question with the current times. One thing that a lot of people might not be aware of is Ayurveda has been talking about epidemics, pandemics since thousands of years. So a lot of people who are following the Ayurvedic principles, they are already immune to such pandemics that may arise. And it is already, and the chapter, it is called Janapadodvamsa, and there is many variations. So we are still following the same principles of vaccination and prevention. And so even very common Ayurvedic physicians and in every part of India, they are following the similar principles. And so you see so many people, if you see the population of India, it's more than 1.4 billion people. And when you think about it, very few have been really affected. And the reason for this is it is in the culture, it is in the kitchen, it is in the cooking. Almost every mother, she knows how to use the spices, she knows how to use turmeric, she knows how to use hot water, and what is the meaning of keeping clean, and purification things. And not only purification of the physical relative value, there is a lot of science and understanding of purification of the mind, of the nervous system. This is something that is explained in a very spiritual sense, because it is something that we cannot see. It is the finest relative aspect in our physiology, is our memory, it is our nervous system. And that is something that we don't have the technology to see that directly, but we can all experience it on a deeper level of enlivened consciousness. And this is what a lot of these people are talking about, that if you have a mind, a nervous system that is fully established in health consciousness, then there is very little that can actually disturb you, because your immune system is already so alive, it is so active, that very little can affect you. And then on top of that, there is a more, you can say, in the current state, more people are willingly taking these decoctions, which are like teas. Earlier they used to neglect them because everybody was happy, they were not so aware. But
Herbal
now,
teas.
now due to this fear of this COVID, even the people who are really not even thinking about this are like trying to ask and find out what I can drink, what I can do. and
Herbal teas.
and and so you will see, when Indians, they go to any part of the world, they don't need so many vaccines. They can easily adapt to any culture, any situation, because they, by culture, they have a very strong immunity. Whereas anybody coming into India or Africa or Asia, they definitely need more immuno boosters and vaccines. And so we have to bring that awareness. We have to help people to remember the health consciousness, which is already structured in their consciousness. If they can remember that knowledge, what is health, what is all that, then easily they can establish themselves in that state of balance. And also, like Ayurveda has one advantage, time tested, whether it
I'm
is
sorry, could you
pandemic.
speak louder because your voice was not coming very
Yeah.
clearly.
Ayurveda has one advantage, is it is time tested. So because of time tested, whether several pandemics that has passed on, there is that advantage where many things are explained this way. But in the current COVID, the limited time and whatever the vaccines are coming, they're not tested enough. So to be immediately in use, we definitely need to take the help of whatever the principles in lifestyle, in different herbal teas, whatever is easy. I
Preventive.
think that preventive aspect of Ayurveda should be far reached now. You see, whenever it comes to autoimmune system, it is a very complex, even the modern medicine will admit that that is autoimmune system is one of the most complicated subject there is. And so there is no one treatment to it. It is, if you put all the treatment on vaccine itself, that is like overburdening one method of treatment. Vaccine is not the only way to cure this problem. There are so many factors that we have to consider, And this is where Ayurveda, being the root, being the mother of all medical systems, it takes into consideration the holistic approach. Every single point that exists in our nature, in nature, in our physiology is taken into account. And when you approach healing in that way, you are much more secure. You have not invested everything into one thing. You have invested into the whole picture. And as you know, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
That's why I Yeah. And that's why Ayurveda emphasizes mainly on maintaining health of every individual rather than treating the disease. Ayam Dukkham Anagatam. Prevention can be better understood as the measures taken by an individual than to the onset of any disease, which will remove the possibility of the disease occurring in.
Which essentially tells us that people who take the vaccine, who get vaccinated, should definitely use and follow some Ayurvedic practices to compensate for the possible harm that the vaccine may cause to their immune system. I have friends who went through chemotherapy for cancer, but they took Ayurvedic medicines and they were able to recover completely from the effects of chemotherapy, which otherwise can leave very painful effects on the general health of the patient. So is that your advice?
Yeah, definitely. You see, if the person is considering everything, then there is more peace in the mind as well. He or she does not have to have any concern, because everything that is possible is being taken into account when it comes to Ayurveda. And if there is any benefit with the vaccine, then that will be also proven in time. So a person who is already doing Ayurveda or natural lifestyle will not have the fear, because that person will have the sensitive awareness, the refined perception to feel the subtler states of the body. So such a person will know very well that he is not in illness, he is not in sickness. So such a person will not even consider taking a vaccine that has not been fully proven, because he is already in a very healthy lifestyle state of mind.
And anyway, he is taking, we have Panchakarma also for purification.
When it becomes possible to travel to a clinic and get it.
So I
Now
will
this,
take this opportunity to, we have been saying this many times. I will again repeat what we were saying in Italy. This is another great opportunity for the Italian doctors, especially who are learning Ayurveda, to start establishing Panchakarma in their own region with their own cultural inheritance of herbs and plants. Italy is such a rich country when it comes to understanding nature and plants. There is a lot of wealth that has been forgotten by the modern generations, and this should be revived.
And if any extra help is needed, we are happy to help through the modern technology. And so the doctors can, yeah, we can guide the doctors.
well, I'm in Delhi, and I can tell you that in India too, there needs to be a lot more, facilities
Yes.
for this kind of therapies, because they are not so widely available, at least not as widely available as they should be. Now, my question has to do with the current evolution in Ayurvedic medication, particularly pharmacology. We see more and more that Ayurvedic medicines are being made in industrial plants, uh, according more or less to the protocols of Western allopathic medicine. Uh, this leads many people to think that the virtues of the plant, which have to be wild plants, as you also say in your website, that cannot be generally respected, because obviously there are constraints in terms of economies of scale and technological processes, industrial protocols. How would you rate medicine. I wouldn't ask you to rate medicine, but what do you think of the industrialization of Ayurveda? Do you think it is potentially diminishing its potency? And should Ayurveda try to remain what you make of it, which is essentially a family-based, relatively small-scale practice in which medicines are made according to traditional methods?
You see, this is a good example to understand that Ayurveda or any aspect of the Veda is interdependent on each other. When it comes to large scale production of herbs, if we are nowadays, it is proven in the farming industries that monocrop system is a failure. And also the way they are using chemicals and pesticides is depleting the nutrient quality on in the soil. The soil has many different qualities. Now this is the field of farming, so we have to work in hand with the farmers to develop an industrial level of multi-crop, which is based on organic biodynamic farming. And this is a long picture that there are many people like Vandana Shiva. These people are working on this, and there are many farmers who are cooperating and creating a collaboration, a cooperative, to be able to provide to the industries of Ayurveda. And again, when it comes to industrialization, the pharmacy would require more conscious employees, and more conscious employees comes due to meditation and such spiritual practices. The conscious enlivened and scale. But until we sustain and establish such a quality controlled, sustainable, conscious employee industry, we are we are dependent on the small scale vaidya for quality, because the personal attention of a vaidya is very different than a layman's attention, who might not be aware of what is the process, what is going on. So we have to come back. We have to come back. At the same time, we also have to incorporate modern technologies, modern machineries, and this is going to be a unifying process that will come unfold itself in the future.
Along with the help of government,
Yeah,
understanding that.
the government takes a big role in this because it is due to the support, the encouragement of the government, by giving incentives and by creating opportunities to educate and to reorient the farmers, the people, the vaidyas. We can collaborate and create a more unified, diverse industrial scale of herbal pharmacies.
Yes, you led me to my next question, which is about the role that the government can play, especially now that Atmanirbhar Bharat has become a central policy and that the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi is very committed to the preservation and the development of Indian traditional knowledge. Uh, what are can you suggest some practical steps that, in your experience, the government of India should take to help promote Ayurveda both at home and abroad, considering we all know that Western medicine is having a bigger and bigger impact on health, both positive and negative, in India as well, because of the growing power of pharmaceutical companies and the growing prestige of high-tech medications, which, as you know, are making many people disregard or ignore the traditional remedies because they find it's easier to pop pills, and they become often dependent on the advice of doctors, who in turn are very often, let's face it, closely connected to pharmaceutical corporations. So do you think, is there a way that you think the government of India could create a policy that would protect the integrity of traditional systems of medicine from the growing power of global pharmaceutical companies?
It is possible. It is possible because you see, nature is abundant. The plants are abundant. They are able to be cultivated. And there is, because of, by knowing this, in the Vedic tradition, they developed such a vast variety of all the herbs. And luckily, India is more with the agriculture, so much more. So, and the forests are very many, so many. So with these things, lot of herbs can be cultivated, lot of herbs can be given. And if anybody, they, because now the modern medicines, they are, and they are trained, and the trend it is there. So they can, if anybody wants, they, like for example, the people also, those who are accustomed, used to it. So if they want to take that, along with that, if they are taking just a few herbs which are having that preventive aspect, because nothing is greater than the Ayurvedic medicine as in the preventive medicine. And no other systems are having the preventive medicine. Only Ayurveda has that field, only in Ayurveda. So giving something not to fall sick, that is the best. Of course, people may think that, those who are doing, they may think that, oh, if there is means for us, there is no business. If everybody becomes healthy, then what is the, how we can survive? The companies. But which it is not true. If everybody becomes healthy, because they know, they understand what is the importance of the health. So to maintain the health, to be healthy, they start to take good food, because through the food what you are eating, so you are becoming. So by eating the good food, you are developing the health. And by eating the good food, then you are taking care of, because the disease, it is not just by treated by the medicines, because the food also very important. How you became sick, because of eating wrong food, because of eating wrong environment, wrong behavior, all these things taken care, and you are getting the education in these things. And with the along with the modern medicine, like through the food, or through the spices, or through the herbs, or herbal teas, or some things like that, you can take care of your problems, your diseases, sicknesses. So like this can be supported. And if anybody wants to be only on the herbs, they can be on the herbs. And if anybody don't want to take anything, just only the healthy food, that is also possible. Slowly, it takes time. But for all these things, educating everybody in the self pulse reading, educating everybody in the health.
And also, I would like to add, because now, as we traveled, also we experienced, and many people shared that Ayurveda is being sold, like you take anything nature and you label it Ayurveda, it is being sold now. So maybe it should be from Indian government itself. And we have very high regards for our Sri Narendra Modi ji, because he has really that deep respect towards Ayurveda, where it can be categorized like this is the lifestyle Ayurveda, this is the herbs for chronic illnesses, and this is daily kitchen use Ayurveda. So if this policies and like how the Chinese government has helped the Chinese system, which actually originates from Ayurveda, but it is so well established. Now the Indian government, if they can bring in such policies and such boards where traditional vaidyas to all the government bodies, they all sit together and create certain criteria. What should be authenticated as Ayurveda and what is not falling under Ayurveda in terms of, misguided, just commercial aspect.
There is definitely a lot of misinterpretations due to commercialization of Ayurveda. But in due time, due to the authenticity of leadership, administrative leadership quality, this will be clarified from the Indian government and from the associations of Vaidyas, and so these policies will come into play. And in many ways, I suppose we have to work on this and put our attention on this aspect.
Indeed, because what I see already happening in other countries is that anything that in Ayurveda is regarded as health preparations or cosmetics, anything that is considered light medicine or herbal products is rather easily accepted. Of course, whenever you are dealing with more complex and sophisticated Ayurvedic medication, then you have the problem of standards and tests in terms of mineral contents and heavy metals. And at that point, there are lots of restrictions and controls and roadblocks to Ayurveda. As we all know, outside India, in many countries, people have to make do with some of the Ayurvedic medicines and they cannot access others because they are not allowed. So I think what you said is very valuable because it shows that you could actually divide the Ayurveda that can be freely implanted all over the world without any restrictions, and the Ayurveda that should be more closely monitored and controlled in the Indian context. And as we all know, Ayurveda was born and developed in the Indian cultural and social environment, and modern life, not only in abroad, but even in India, is sometimes very difficult to reconcile with the traditional practice because people, they don't have time, they are busy, they lead different lives, their food is different, their habits are different. So you have to create a process of adaptation. You have to adapt to current circumstances. And I think that's what Maharishiji began to do very well and what you have continued to do in a much more specific way.
Yeah, this is the great contribution of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi ji, that he was the pioneer of distinguishing and deciding what is what and correlating that with the modern science. This is what has really been missing when it comes to ancient science, technology, ancient literature, ancient knowledge. This correlation with modern science is something that has not been easily adapted, and he really brought that clarity to the people, and that is the reason he is known around the world and in India as the scientific guru for this universe.
And Ayurveda has actually anything can be used as the medicine. Like if it is with the heavy metals and all these things, there are the pure herbal preparations also. And when as a part of our body also composed of all different, we are talking about the heavy metals, but our body is composed of the heavy metals and all the different materials, poisonous, non-poisonous, toxic, and all these the materials are there. It is the composition of the different things where from they are coming, and they are coming, and even the in the food it contains. So, but Ayurveda has the ability of purification. For example, if you see in the modern medicine, like most of the vaccines, the base which is used either aluminium or mercury or different things like that. Like dental fillings, amalgam, it is pure mercury. It used to be used more, now it is less. They are
Now it's
becoming
not
less
even
and less
allowed,
because
yeah.
they don't know the yeah,
Banned now in most countries.
because they are not. Ayurveda uses after the purification. Ayurveda uses after the purification. So that way, if anybody doesn't want, like for example, lithium. In psychiatric patients, lithium considered to be dangerous metal,
Yes.
but lithium, it is used for the psychiatric problems.
Yes.
So like that, there are so many way Ayurveda can give purely herbal preparations and some mineral preparations. Even pure herbal also they can be possible. Pure mineral also, mineral and herbal combination possible. In different ways it is possible because it has the total knowledge.
And I would like to add one more point where we experienced how Mahर्षि did that. Like when Mahर्षि guided my father to travel the world from Amazon forest to Russia to South America, North America, and going through the indigenous plants and this. So the knowledge of Ayurveda is not only in classrooms and one limited area, but actually going into the forest. And when he brought us studying in his center in Netherlands, where we were homeschooled and mostly exposed to the Vedic knowledge along with Ayurveda as the primary education. And of course, eventually we went back to India and also attained our degrees in Delhi University and everything. So somewhere, if the government can bring in the traditional family value and the Gurukul system and the college together, then even the masses can benefit from this knowledge where it is preserved and given to everyone. So this can be, the education can be one more added
You
policy.
see, if you look at the children who are trained under the Vedic values, they have also inherited the same world that the rest of the children from around the world who are educated in modern education, they have inherited the same world. But why is it that the Vedic children are able to take advantage of the ancient Vedic inheritance that is already available to us in the laws of nature, in the form of the laws of nature? It is already there because of their attention. The modern education, its attention is more focused on the very recent past of our existence. When it comes to the Vedic education, the attention is focused on our from the from the origin to the infinite, from point to infinite. When the attention is put onto the whole existence of creation, then we become aware of our accountability, we become aware of our inheritance, and we want to make sure that we do not further the wrong habits that have developed over many generations. And we want to do the reversal of wrong actions, wrong karmas. And this reversal of wrong actions has to start from within. From now, a lot of things depends on proper conscious education.
Thank you. It is my not so pleasant duty to have to end this fascinating conversation. I would like to say in conclusion that what you have said is particularly timely and valuable because, as you know, there is now an accelerated process to reform the educational system, not only in India, national education policy, but also in the world, because another effect of the COVID crisis has been, in fact, a realization of the insufficiency and, in fact, the unviability, the unsustainability of much of modern current educational systems based on degrees in the schools and universities with the varying degrees of specialization. So there is a lot of thinking that's taking place about how to reform this system, which is no longer responding to the needs of the hour. And that's where Ayurveda and the knowledge associated with it can play a very critical role. So I hope that your contribution to this wisdom will be appreciated and used. And I would like to thank you again, Vaidya J R Raju, Vaidya Dr. Harvardan Raju, Dr. Aditya Raju, and Dr. Pavani Raju. Thank you very much for agreeing to this interview. And I hope we will have another opportunity in the future to pursue this dialogue.
Very
Thank
nice.
you very much for giving the opportunity to spread Ayurveda and knowledge of Ayurveda to everyone. Jai Gurudev. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.
Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the India Foundation podcast. Do like, share, and subscribe the India Foundation channel.